Good morning and welcome to my podcast, Unwind and Knit with me. My name's Lisa and I'm coming to you from Christchurch in New Zealand, and I'd like to say a big welcome to all my existing viewers, and if you are a new viewer to my channel, welcome. I hope you enjoy the content. I hope you have a cup of coffee and you're knitting, and I hope you've got a spare hour or so to sit back and join me. And thank you. Today is Wednesday the 19th of July and this is episode 44. I am coming to you a week later than I had originally planned because I got sick last week. I won't call it the flu, but I did get a cold and I felt fairly average. So I'm coming to you a week late. And I just wanted to say before I forget, I'm heading away on Friday with my husband for a 2-week vacation. And I don't know that I'm going to get a lot of knitting done in that time because we're going to a very hot tropical destination. So it could be 3 to 4 weeks before my next podcast. So if you're wondering where I am, I'm on vacation. So there may be a wee gap between episode 44 and episode 45. You can find me on Instagram as Unwind and Knit with me, and also on Facebook. Facebook, we have a really amazing community group which is growing every week. The numbers just keep growing there, and that's a place where you can share with me your projects or your purchases or what you're up to. It's a really neat little community and you can ask questions. There's always someone in there that will be able to help you, I'm sure. But yeah, so that's Facebook and Instagram. And also I leave show notes below for anything I talk about. So any patterns or yarns or tutorials, anything that I think may be of interest, I leave in my show notes below. I think on some devices you can't see the show notes. You have to be on a laptop or a computer. I think if you're on your phone and even a tablet, I think you can have problems finding the show notes. So if that's the case, jump onto your laptop or your computer. And also, yeah, please subscribe to my channel. Just so those of you who don't know, when you subscribe to a YouTube channel, it doesn't cost you anything and there's no commitments. All it is that you will get a notification when my new podcast becomes available. And by subscribing, it helps me with my channel. So please subscribe. And I think that's all the admin-y things. Once again, this is probably going to be quite a chatty podcast. It may go for a little while. So once again, I want to thank you because I know there's so many podcasts out there. And if you've chose to spend an hour or so with me, I really appreciate it. I have a lot to talk about of places I've been to, people I've met, yarns that I've purchased, and of course, all my garments that I'm knitting, WIPs, FOs, and things that are on my list that will potentially be new cast-ons. So I will start with what I'm wearing, because I always start with what I'm wearing. I have finished my second Misurina by Caitlin Hunter. There's the pattern there. I really enjoy this pattern. I did one, it was probably about 2 years ago now, in a yellow. I have showed it before on this podcast. But I actually saw another podcaster wearing this in similar shades of colour that what I've chosen, and I loved it on her. It was Kelly from Knits and Pieces, and when I saw her wearing it, I just knew I wanted one. So this is my Misurina. It's short sleeve. If you know me, you will know that I do actually knit quite a few short sleeve garments because I wear them in the summer, but in the winter I layer them with a merino underneath. Over here in New Zealand, we're in the southern hemisphere, so we're actually in the middle of our winter. So I know a lot of my viewers come from the States and Canada and other parts where you probably smeltering, is that the right word? It's very hot I know over in America especially, and also parts of Europe. So, but anyway, we're in winter here, which is why I've got my top layered up. I did this top pretty well exactly to pattern. I'm just checking. I think the pattern calls for wrap and turns, and I always substitute my wrap and turns with German short rows because I find them easier and I think they look better. But I think that's a personal thing. But that's probably the only modification that I made. With the body, you have a choice of purl bumps or eyelets, and I think I can show you. I chose the eyelets, and you can see there's a whole, yeah. But if you don't like the eyelets, you can do purl bumps. And I do think I added an extra inch or two to my sleeves because I think they finished quite short and I wanted a little bit more length. So yeah, that's my Misurina. Now I knitted this. I'll show you the yarn I knitted it in. This colour is actually one of my favourite colours. It's called Volcanic, and it's a high twist merino. So it's a New Zealand, 100% New Zealand merino. And this particular yarn is actually milled here and dyed here, local to me in the Christchurch area. This colour is called Volcanic, and it's just a really beautiful colour. There is, I think what I'm wearing, you can see a bit more gold. There is gold in there, but there's also taupe and taupes and light browns and light blues. It's just a really beautiful colour. And the colour work, I just had this really dark brown merino in my stash, so you could stash dive. I think I only used about 25 grams of yarn for the colour work, but I thought I'd show you a couple more combinations that I think you could do this pattern in that would look really good. I think it's a really lovely pattern if you're a returning knitter, or you're what would you call it, an advanced beginner, and you want to try your hand at a little bit of colour work. It's not a hard pattern, but it's a really interesting pattern because there's lace work. There's between each colour panel here, there's a bit of cable. So you've got a little bit of everything, and I feel like it knitted up quite quickly, and I think that's because there's so much interest in it. So that's my Misurina. But what I've done, I've just grabbed a couple of colour combinations. So I thought if you're really wanting to do this, the colour I've chosen, and by the way, I forgot to say that I have a website and I have a little online shop, unwindandknit.com. So I thought I'd show you some colour combinations, but this one here is called Chocolate Strawberry. And so I thought if you like burgundies and plummy colours, and I thought that would look amazing paired up with this. So this is my Exmoor sock, which comes from John Urban Textiles in the UK. So they're different, but so is mine. Like the yarn I chose for the colour work was different to the yarn in the main body. But this colour here in Exmoor sock, this one, is called Bell Heather. And I looked at those two and I thought I just have to show them to you. I'm going to leave these colour combinations in my show notes because I'm pretty sure that there's someone out there that's going to want to do this. So that one is Chocolate Strawberry and Bell Heather. The other combination I picked out was, this colour is called Vegas Lights, and this has really light pinks and purple speckles, but I thought that with Bell Heather as well would be a really beautiful combination. This would really pop out, the Bell Heather. The other combination was again the Vegas Lights, but with, it's called Fairy Thimble. So all of this is Exmoor sock. But I thought those two there, if you love pinks, this is just a speckle, it's not solid, but you could add that pink for your pop of colour work. And the last combination I wanted to show you was, again, the Volcanic, which I'm using, but teamed up with the Whortleberries, which is a really dark blue. But once again, you probably have something in your stash that you could do your colour work in. But there's lots and lots of different combinations. I actually pulled that one out as well. If you love yellow, this yellow makes a beautiful summer garment, and you could team that up with the dark blue. That's Whortleberries, and it would just really pop. So there's some of my colour combinations, my recommendations for Misurina, the one that I'm wearing. I did also just want to give a shout out to all the ladies in Masterton. So I'm going to spend the next 5 minutes telling you about a trip that I did. I flew from here in Christchurch to Wellington 2 weekends ago, and they had it's called the Capital Fibre Fest, and I went there not as a trader but as a customer. And it was my first time there, and I just had a blast. I was there for a couple of hours. I did quite a few laps of all the stalls, and I did buy some treasures, which I'll share with you later on in the podcast. But from there, we went to Masterton, and there's a lady there called Donna, and she's got a podcast called Blind and Knitting, and Donna is actually legally blind. And her and a couple of friends got together, and they had a knitting weekend retreat, and they invited me to go along. And I had a blast. I spent a weekend with some really lovely ladies that were all like-minded. It was all about knitting. There were some classes. We did a tour of a wool shed, and that's where the spinners and weavers work out of. And I'll talk about that because I made a purchase there. So we went to a museum, and yeah, we just hung out, and it was just a real highlight for me. So thank you very much, Donna, for inviting me, and hello to all the ladies that I shared that weekend with, and thank you because I had a really good time. So that was Capital Fibre Fest and the Masterton Knitting Retreat. If you live in that region and you are looking for a knit group, contact Donna. I'll leave her details below in my show notes, but you can contact her through Blinds and Knitting. Donna is, she's not 100% blind, but she's gradually losing her sight. She's what is considered legally blind, so she can't drive a car or anything like that. But she's still an amazing knitter, and I just have a whole lot of respect for her for what she does. She still works full time, but she's just created this really nice knitting community around her. But another highlight was spending the weekend with her guide dog, Kenzie, beautiful golden Labrador. They're just so smart. It was just a real highlight. And if you like dogs, Kenzie also has her own Facebook page. It's called Kenzie the Guide Dog. I'll leave the link below for that. But just amazing dogs, and how they can go from having a harness on and being in work mode to having a harness off and just being this beautiful, placid dog that loves pets and cuddles. It was just a real highlight. So that was my weekend, and then I travelled back to Wellington, and I spent the morning in Wellington before going back to the airport and flying home. And I visited a really amazing bookshop, and I purchased some books, and I'll tell you about that later on in the podcast as well. Okay, let's talk about some knitting. I've got a few WIPs on the go that I've made some good progress on, so I'm going to share those with you. My first one is my stripes jersey by Andrea Mowry, and once again, a bit like the Misurina, this is my second stripes jersey because I just love it. I love the top-down yoke construction, and I do like stripes. And I had some, well, I have got some beautiful yarn in my Yarnadelic range, which is a sports weight yarn from the UK. And I'd been eyeing up this combination for a year and wanted to do it. So I have cast it on. So this is my stripes. This is the progress I've made. I have finished the back and the front, and I have just divided for the sleeves. I've got my sleeves on hold there on my cables. So I've literally just divided for the sleeves, and I have finished one whole colour repeat, which is what I wanted to show you. So I have used I've used 6 colours, but the lighter colour here, which is called Ordinary Joe, I have repeated. So I'm doing, so there's 3 colours, and then the light, and then another 3 colours and the light. So I am repeating that lighter colour. You can see it there. I'm just absolutely thrilled with it, and I know it's going to be a piece in my wardrobe that I'm going to love. The modifications I made once again was I have done German short rows instead of wrap and turns at the back there. You work back and forwards to create a higher back than the front. So I have done German short rows. There's a couple of other little things with this pattern that I wanted to tell you about. The first one is, if you've ever worked stripes before, there's a method called jogless stripes, and it's so as though you don't get a step when you change colour, when you go from one colour to the next colour. If you don't do that jogless technique, you'll end up with a wee step every time, and it's a really easy thing to do. And Andrea does have her own tutorial on how to do it. So I really advise that you look at the pattern and look for the tutorial link. But if you just put into YouTube jogless stripes, Andrea Mowry's does appear there up near the top of the options. So have a look at that tutorial. And the other thing I've done, which I think are really important, when I knitted my first stripes jersey, which is upstairs now, at the end of it, I had dozens of ends to sew in where I had joined. So for every stripe, you end up with 2 ends that you have to sew in. Well, there's a method called Steven Weaving, and it's a Stephen West method, and you weave your ends in as you go. Let's see if I can show you. I can. So you can see here, I have weaved in the ends at every colour change, and then just snip the end off. I will tidy that up after I've blocked it. So all my ends are being woven in as I go, so you're not stuck with that horrible job at the end of having to weave in, you know, dozens and dozens of ends. So I really recommend you have a look at that tutorial. One thing I did do towards the top here, I weaved in both ends at the same time, and I thought it's a little bit too chunky, but I wasn't going to rip it back. So down here, the last few that I did, I weaved them in over 2 rows. So I weaved in one end, and then on the next round I weaved in the second end, and it's not as sort of bumpy, but it's a really good technique, and I really recommend that you do that, weave and Steven. It's actually a technique that you could use whenever you are doing the stripes method or changing colours. When I have to join yarn and it's the same yarn and the same color, I spit splice it, which is a really good technique, so you don't have to weave it in. But you can't do that when you are using two different colors, or you could, but I wouldn't advise it. So weave and steven is that technique. I put together some kits for this, for exactly the same color combination that I am using, and I sold out. So thank you to everyone that bought one of my kits. Now, when I say I sold out, there's one of the colors in here that I'm completely out of. So what I'm going to do is add a few more kits onto my website for this, but I am going to substitute, it's that dark color there, which is called Bardi Da. That's the color I've sold out of. So I am going to substitute that with Black Gold in the Sun. And to be quite honest, I think this will look even better. So I will later today add a few more kits. And if you look on my website and put in stripes kit, it will appear. And what I've done is discounted it. So this yarn's normally $35 a skein. If you buy it as a kit, what is there, six skeins of wool, it'll be $180. So I've taken $5 off each skein when you buy it as a kit. The other thing that happened is, after I showed this on my last podcast, I had a couple of people come back to me wanting to do it, but in a different colour stripe combination. And one of my viewers, Glennis, I'll say hello to Glennis, she is doing this in a colour combination that's got greens and golds. And it looks stunning when I put it together for her. So I am going to add that as a kit as well. So there'll be stripes kit blues, and then there'll be a stripe kits greens. So if greens are your colour, go and have a look at it. But I'm also going to add one with purples, because I have a beautiful selection of purples, mauves and dusty pink. So I'm going to add a purple one, and then I'm also going to add one, and I'll probably call it rust. So I've got some really nice rust and browny, beigey, goldy colours. So that's what I'm going to do. There will probably only be about 4 kits in each colour. But if you want to do this and you want to, you don't want to work through the colour selection yourself, because it can be quite daunting when there's so many colours, you can jump on and see what these colour combinations look like, and they might be your thing. Once again, this is a top down in the round yoke construction, and if you are a returning knitter and a beginner or an adventurous beginner, I think this is a really nice pattern, because it really is just knit stitch, stockinette stitch with short rows and dividing for the sleeves, of course. And those 2 methods that I just talked about, weave and steven and joggler stripes, they're super, super simple. And if you look at the tutorial, you'll breeze through it. So that is Andrea Mowry stripes, and that's the progress I've made. I said earlier on, I'm going away on Friday for 2 weeks, and I'll talk about when I go away, packing my knitting bag and what I'm going to take away with me is actually a bigger process than actually packing my suitcase for what I'm going to wear. Like, I get so stressed out about what I'm going to take, because I always think that whatever I take, I'm going to leave something at home that I'm going to want. But anyway, I have decided I'm not going to take this, and the reason for that is there's 6 balls of wool. It's quite a big bag, just for one project. So I am going to leave this one at home. So when I see you next, I'm probably not going to have made a lot of progress on it. I've got that in one of my new bags. It's called the Small Tote. That's it there. And this colour's mustard. And for a small tote, it really holds a lot of wool. It actually holds 5 or 6 skeins, plus your notions pouch. So that is the first WIP that I have been working on. I think I've done all of that since I saw you on my last podcast. I think my last podcast I was just telling you I was going to cast it on. So I'm pretty happy with the progress. Pretty happy with the progress I have made on that. And if you like it and want to give it a go, I will have those kits available on my website. I was just checking. Yeah, I've done that pretty well to pattern. I'm doing the size 4. I am using 6 colours, but a 7 stripe combination. And for my main body, I'm using a 3.75mm needle. That gave me gauge with that yarn. That yarn, if I didn't mention before, it's a sports weight yarn, which is what the pattern calls for. And yep, that's all I've got to say about my stripes WIP. My next WIP, I'm really happy with as well, and I've made some really good progress. There it is. I knew I had it here. Just get it out. I'm just going to pause while I pull all this out of my bag. Okay, sorted. So my next WIP is my Calypso sweater, and that's by Alana from Black Cat Knitting Company. And Alana has a yarn store in Auckland called Lupine. That's the pattern there. Alana has used, I think it's Brooklyn Tweed, no, a Rowan yarn. It'll come to me. Anyway, I have substituted the main body for my Yarnadelic, which is a sports weight yarn, which works perfect for this. And the colour work is in Spin Cycle, and it calls for 2 skeins of Spin Cycle. And I just sort of quickly mention, if you are interested in doing this or getting Spin Cycle and you're watching me this week, Alana I was on her website last night. She's got 10% off all of her Spin Cycle. So it's probably a good time to get it if you're wanting to get a couple of skeins, because it's pretty expensive. But that's the Calypso sweater. That's in my black bucket bag. I love this bag. They've got a really big base on them, and they stand up by themselves, so you can work straight out of them. But that's my leather bucket bag, comes in the black and the tan. So this is my Calypso, and I have made really, really good progress on it. And I just love it. This is my first time using Spin Cycle. I was reluctant to use it because of the price, but I think if it's special, is what I'll say. I don't think I'll ever knit a full jersey in it because of the price, but for colour work and this sweater, absolutely love it. Big fan. The colour I used is Miss Me, and then down the bottom I used another colour that I had in my stash because I didn't want to buy the second skein, and I had a skein, I think it was Grumpy Birds. So you can see there's a bit of a change there, but I'm happy with it. And the main body is from my Yarnadelic, and it's called Bardi Dar, and that's the colour I've actually sold out of. I won't be doing an order for this until I get back from my trip, but there's lots of other different colour combinations. So I've done the sleeve up to the point where you decrease and do this, the cuff, the band, and I've done both of them. And I'm almost at the part of the body where you stop to do the bottom band. I made some pretty good progress on this last night, but I think I'm still about an inch short. So my goal this afternoon is to do another inch or so on the body, put it on cords and try the whole thing on. You can see by the pattern here that she's got a 3/4 length sleeve. I'm not sure if I want it that short, and that's why I stopped where I did, because I want to try it on when it's almost completed, and I may do more of a bracelet length sleeve. So I may add a couple of inches, but I'll decide on that when I try it on later. Once again, I won't be taking this away with me, so if I don't get it finished by Friday, it'll still be sitting here when I get back, probably in this same state. But I really do hope to make some progress on it this afternoon and tonight, and possibly even tomorrow night. I just love it. Highly recommend it for first time colour work. It's a beautiful pattern, and I think it's a really good pattern if you're wanting to try spin cycle. I don't think there's a spin cycle colour that would be wrong. I think they're all amazing, and it's just a matter of pairing it up with your main colour for the body. So that's it there. So thank you, Alana, for that pattern. And like I said, she does have 10% off, which is quite a lot considering I think it's about $52. So you're saving about $5.20. So it's worth it if you are wanting to try it. So that's my Calypso. I'm just checking my journal. I'm doing the size 4, which is the large. I probably won't do it too cropped. I probably will add a little bit of length to the body. And that's it. I haven't made any modifications. That's what I was just checking to see. I haven't made any modifications except for, I don't know, actually she says German short rows. And it's also a German twisted cast on, which is actually one of my favourite cast ons, and I use it all the time. Yeah, that pattern is available on Ravelry. It's a paid for pattern. And yeah, absolutely loving it. Probably would have had it finished if I didn't get a cold last week. I lost a few days, but pretty close to having that finished. So that's my other WIP. And actually, they're the only 2 WIPs that I've been working on. That's it. I've been really quite good and only working on 2 WIPs. In saying that, I was going to mention, I've lost my sock mojo. I started this year with a plan to knit a pair of socks every 2 months. My plan was to, by Christmas time, have 5 or 6 pairs in my stash to give away as gifts, and I haven't finished one. So a little bit disappointed with that, but I'm thinking I may take one away with me. It's a good little project to take away, and it's a good one just to knit on in airports and on the plane and that. So I may take some socks away with me. But that just is a segue into my next subject that I was going to say. When I was at Wellington Airport, I got off the plane and I was walking towards the ladies' toilets, and I heard someone call my name, Lisa. Hi. And she came up to me and she said, "Oh, I recognised you. Are you Lisa from Unwind and Knit with me?" And I said, "Yes, I am." And it was Cynthia from Mrs. Peacock's Yarns. Now, earlier this year, Cynthia does self-striping yarns, sock yarns, and we did a week collaboration together, and she gave me some yarn to give away as a gift, which I did, and you guys loved it. I think you just had to leave a comment, and we drew a prize. And the yarn we featured was this one here. I don't remember what it's called. It's called Posy. I just love the way she rolls her balls. So this is Posy, and it's Mrs. Peacock's yarns, and you get your little skein for your contrast in toe, heel and cuff, and that's my one. So I'm thinking I might, because I don't even have to wind it, it's already been wound, I only have to wind that little one. I'm thinking I might cast on a new pair of socks and take that away with me. So getting back onto Cynthia. So I met Cynthia at the airport, totally not planned. It was just purely coincidence, and I was going to get an Uber out to the Capital Fibre Fest where I was meeting up with these ladies, and I said, we'll share an Uber. And she said, no, my husband's here, we've hired a car. So we shared a ride out to the Fibre Festival together. So that was another highlight, getting to meet Cynthia, because we'd only ever communicated via email. Cynthia has since been in touch with me, and every year she dyes a special colourway for Christmas, which I'm guessing is probably greens and reds, I'm not sure. But we're going to do another collaboration, and I know it's so early to be talking about Christmas, but I said to her, no, sooner is better than later, because we can start to plan. So as soon as Cynthia gets that Christmas yarn to me, I'll show it to you, and we'll work on doing a giveaway for that. So, but in the meantime, Mrs. Peacock's Yarns, she sells her yarns via Etsy, and I will leave the details for that in my show notes. But that is something I'm thinking I may take away with me, is that I might cast on a new pair of socks. And like I said, it's quite sad because I love sock knitting, but I've just lost my sock mojo. On my last podcast too, I did a wee segment on Chalgoo needles, and thank you for all the positive feedback. So many people were so grateful that I explained the Chalgoo range and about it. And I had so many people come back and say to me, you inspired me to sort out my needles and to really work on what I needed. And a lot of you ordered Chalgoo off me, so thank you very much. But what I wanted to say about Chalgoo, I normally say this stuff at the end as a shop update, but I will just tell you quickly. If you're wanting to buy a kit, a set of the interchangeables, I have added the 3mm tip to every kit, and I'm doing that as a free gift with purchase, because the needle set goes from a 2.75 to a 3.25, and it doesn't contain the 3. And I use the 3mm quite a bit now, and I know that there's a lot of patterns coming out, especially with sports weight and fingering weight yarn, and they call for a 3mm needle. So I'm doing that as a free gift with purchase. So if you order those needles, it will be in there. You don't have to request it. I've already added it to every kit. Because when I'm away, my daughter's going to be looking after the online shop, and she's very capable. A lot of you might have met her at Christchurch Woolfest this year. She helped me. She was a great help, but she knows how to operate my online store, so that will run as normal, but I won't be checking emails. So yeah, I mean, if you need advice, I'm not going to be around for that, but feel free to jump on the website and order. And yeah, that's my giveaway with my needle kits. Yeah, and I wanted to mention that because so many of you, like I said, so many of you, it was like, yeah, I really needed to understand that. And the other thing I've ordered, the 30 centimetre fixed are the ones that I recommend for doing sleeves. And I have been asked for those in the 2.25 and the 2.5 for doing socks. So I've ordered the small short fixed in the 2.25 and the 2.5 if you're wanting that small circumference for socks. If you don't like magic loop, generally you do magic loop on the 100 centimetre cable, or you can do it on the small, I think it's 9-inch circumference. And that's the one I recommend if you're doing colour work socks and you're carrying floats. I find that small circumference a lot easier rather than magic loop. Now I'm just going completely off track. So I want to tell you about this bookshop, and it's all knitting related. I'm just going to pause while I get my next bundle. Before I talk about my books, I actually do have more knitting to talk to you about. I'm kind of all over the place today, so I hope you're still hanging in there with me. I did say this could be a long chatty one. I wanted to show you, this is a project that I may take away with me. I may cast it on tomorrow and just get it ready as a new project to take away. Now I've showed you this, it's been in my queue of things I want to knit, and it's called the Daily Pullover, and it's by Purl Soho. And I love the simplicity of this jersey, and I love that deep V-neck. It's worked top down, back and forwards while you're creating the back and the V, then you're joining the round for the body. Now, I did a yarn swap with a lady, and I got in my possession 4 skeins of this Prosper yarn. And Prosper yarn is a New Zealand indie dyer, and this is a 30-70, 70 merino, 30 linen. And I just knew that this wool was going to be perfect for this pattern. No surprises about the colour. It's blue. That's it there, and it's Prosper Yarns. Now, I wound my cake, and I've done my swatch, and I wanted to talk to you about my swatch. So I wet block everything after I've knitted it. So if you're going to wet block a garment when you finish it, you should wet block your swatch. You get a better idea because the yarn's relaxed and everything's nice. So I'll just show you this. I have these foam squares that I got from Kmart. They're like a kid's jigsaw puzzle. I've got a big pack of them. So I have soaked my swatch in hot water, as hot as I can get it. I wanted to talk about this because I know that there's a lot of new viewers, viewers that have got back into knitting, and wet blocking is like, what's wet blocking? We never used to wet block things, but anyway, we wet block now, and I think I will talk about this in other podcasts a bit more. But I use this Cullum wool wash. It's a lanolin enriched wash. I have just added this into my website. I now stock this in the 500ml and the small 100ml. This bottle, still got some in it. I've had this for about 2 years. This lasts forever. And the reason being too, I think, because you don't wash your woolens very often. I put a small cap of this in with very hot water, and I soaked my swatch. And then I pin it out onto this piece of foam. I pin it out the same way as I would if I was blocking it. So I haven't aggressively stretched it. I've just pinned it out nicely. These pins are really sharp. They're little 8-prong pins. And they come in a box. And I've got these on my website now as well. And they're just called knit blockers. And that's how they come. I've had these for 5 or 6 years. It's the sort of thing you buy once, you don't have to replace them. So they're the blocking pins. I've blocked it out. Then what I do is I use this, and it's by Chalgu, and they're also on my online shop. But it's a ruler, and it's perfect for counting your stitches. So generally you count your stitches over 4 inches or 10 centimeters. So what I do is I just put that on there like that. Let's see if this shows up. It's not showing up that well, but I just hold that on there, and then I can count each stitch up to 4 inches. And that's my gauge. So when I counted my stitches this morning, I had 26 stitches over 4 inches. So the gauge I have got here is 26. The pattern actually calls for, where's my notes? Sorry, I am organised. I got 26 stitches per 4 inches. The pattern calls for 24. So I have 2 stitches more than I actually need. So what I need to do is make if my stitches were a bit bigger, then I would have less stitches in 4 inches. So I am going to go from, I did this swatch on a 3.5 mil. So the pattern says main body 3.5 mil, but I didn't get gauge. So I'm actually going to go up to a 3.75. It's only 1/4 of a mil bigger, but I think that will give me, it will get me closer to gauge. It's probably not going to be perfect, but it will be better than what I've got. So that's what you do. If you have too many stitches, you need to go up a needle size. So you get bigger stitches and you have less. If you haven't got enough stitches, then you need to go down a needle size to give you more stitches. So that's how I work out my gauge. It's a real bugbear. I'm not an expert at it, but I do try to get as close to gauge as I can. So that's what I've done, and what that little exercise has showed me is that I need to go up a needle size, or half a needle size, or 1/4 of a needle size, whatever the case may be, for you to get a bit closer to gauge. So these, they have all of the conversions, they have all your needle gauge. I've had these for years. It's a sort of thing that I wouldn't be without, and once you've got it forever. But the 20, I can't remember, $24, but they're a good investment. And so are these. If you haven't started wet blocking garments yet, you really should. It changes everything. It relaxes the yarn by soaking it in the water. All the fibers relax, and then you pin it out in shape. And all of often when you do colour work and lace work, it's all sort of puckered up. Well, once you wet block it, it opens everything up, like all your colour work and all your lace work. It all just opens up. So that's wet blocking. And these foam pads, I've also used a yoga mat, but that's a bit too thin. These are cheap as chips in like a big bargain store, Kmart or the warehouse, whatever. You will pick these up in a packet. I think I've got a packet of 10, which makes a really, really big square. And once again, and I've had these for years as well. So that's my wet blocking exercise, so I can cast on this jersey, the pullover, the daily pullover. So that's a bit of my planning process that I use when I'm going to start a new project, and I put all that I write all that information down in my journal. What gauge I got, what needle size I need to use. So yeah, it's really important to do. If you've got yarn and your pattern says a certain needle size, that's not gospel. You really need to do a swatch and find out what your gauge is for that particular garment, and it will give you a better fit. That's all I'm going to say about wet blocking. Wet blocking and doing your swatch. It's really well worth it. Now, the next thing is this bookshop. Now, whether you live in Wellington or not, if you live in Wellington or you're visiting Wellington, I suggest that you go and visit this bookshop. So it's on Cuba Street, which is a really it's a main street in the city of Wellington, and it's a real vibrant street. There's lots of cafes and restaurants, and it's a bit alternative, and it's part of it's a mall with no traffic. So it's well worth going for a wander down Cuba Street. But this bookshop is called Minerva, Minerva, and I'm going to leave the show notes for this. And Minerva means, the meaning of the word, it means a Roman goddess of handcrafts and knowledge. So it says it all. This bookshop is all about handcrafts. And she has the most beautiful books in there for all handcrafts. So spinning, weaving, knitting, crocheting, but also a bit of gardening and cooking. It's all about all of those things. It's a really, what do you call it? Like a specific bookshop. And I think it's really important that we support these bookshops, because we will lose them if we don't, and they'll end up all just going online. So I was in there for over an hour, and the lady in there, her name is Anne, and it's her shop, and she's so helpful. And I want to show you this because I love this. I thought it was awesome. I bought, she also sells a small range of stationery, and it's beautiful stationery. And she packed it up. This was the bag she gave me to put my book in, my stationery. This is the bag. And this has been sewn on a sewing machine, and it's paper from an old magazine. So obviously when magazines go out of date, they become rubbish. Well, she actually sews the pages together, and that's how I got my book. And I thought it was so clever. I loved it. I'm actually keeping that bag. It's just a paper bag, but I thought it was so clever. So I just want to, I did make some notes. So this bookshop, I'll just tell you some, she keeps all of the liner magazines, pom-pom magazines. She keeps a magazine that I hadn't heard of, but I would really like to get one, but I didn't on this trip. And it's Amirisu, and it's a Japanese magazine, and it comes out twice yearly, and it was a beautiful magazine. Oh, it's all in English. It's but it is I think that it features Japanese designers and patterns. Beautiful magazine. She keeps the Vogue magazines and also the Australian knit magazines. And these are magazines that here in New Zealand, and I'm sure Australia, that we see from afar, and you think, oh, well, to buy that, it's going to cost me just the same amount in freight as what the book or the magazine's worth. So to know that I can get all these magazines here in New Zealand was really quite special. She had a lot of books that I would have liked that I didn't get. She had quite a few books on Elizabeth Zinnamon, and I love reading about that lady. She is just, she's a goddess on her own. But I didn't buy any of those. So I bought this book, and this book I have seen around, and it's by Liner, and it's called Stripes. It's a beautiful big hardcover book. The photography is beautiful, and I thought I'd just show you a couple of things. Who's up for knitting a dress? Isn't that great? That'd actually be a quick knit because it's quite chunky wool. So there are shawls, there are hats. What's that one? That's a shawl that contains some brioche. That shawl. I know I'm going to tempt you in buying this. This is a cardigan, which I just loved. Love the stripes and the lace work on the bottom. I've just highlighted a few things that for me it was like, yeah, that book's worth buying because I loved all those things. I won't show you that. There's socks. There's beanies. There's shawls. What else have I got marked here? Oh, just another shawl. Oh, that was it. I really like this. It's a striped, actually that's the back of it. Just a striped t-shirt. I suppose that's why the book's called Stripes. because all the shawls and the socks all contain stripes. Funny that. But I have seen this book from afar, and like I said, to bring books in from overseas is really quite expensive. The next book I bought has been on my radar, and I was so tempted so many times to buy this online from overseas, but it was here in New Zealand. And I hope I'm pronouncing it correctly. Kalevala. And it's also published by Liner magazine. This is another beautiful hardcover book, and there's so many patterns in here that I want to knit. The book, once again, it's got cardigans, socks and beanies. But that, love that. A lot of colour work. Oh, loved this one as well. And I thought the colour was really striking. And I just love the leaves, the colour work. I love that pattern. And it's not often that you see that pattern work around the bottom. Pattern work's normally, colour work is normally around the top, not the bottom. There's another one where the colour work's along the bottom. And I love that deep neck. I love that wide neck on that. That's beautiful. And I just want to show you these because you may want to look at it and think, yeah, it's worth it or it's not worth it. Once I show you a couple of photos. Love this one as well. Isn't it? It's just beautiful. So the books, I don't think they're much cheaper than had I bought it from overseas and paid for freight and all of that, because obviously Anne has to freight all these books in from overseas. But it's just so nice to know that we can get these books that are published overseas, and we can buy them from a local bookshop, because I know that even some of my local yarn stores don't keep books because of the freight. But Anne at this bookshop, at Minerva bookshop, sells all these books. I only bought 3, and do you know, because I had to carry these around in my backpack as well, and my backpack was already full because I was on my way out to the airport. So I did buy 3. This one I'd not heard of before, but I skimmed through the first couple of pages and I just knew I had to have it. And it's called Slow Knitting, and it's a journey from sheep to the skein to the stitch. Isn't it? Hardcover again. It's just a beautiful cover. And I started reading it, and it's all about why we knit, the yarns that we choose, why we choose those yarns. She talks about different yarn and different construction of yarn, just the whole planning of choosing your yarn to knit a garment. It's just such a beautiful book, and there's quite a lot of patterns in it, obviously. But this is, I'll show you this one pattern. The colour's not me, but I just thought it was really striking. Have a look at all that cable work and that pattern. I just loved it. And the other one is the one that's actually on the back page. Let's see if I can get to it. I'll just show you the back page, shall I? That one there. I thought that jersey was just beautiful. It's Hannah Thiessen. But jump onto that website, Minerva, here in New Zealand, and I just know that you'll find books that you love. There were so many more there that I could have bought. She had all of the 52 books, 52 weeks of shawls, 52 weeks of socks. I think there's a new one, 52 weeks of easy jerseys. I'm not sure. I probably was in there for over an hour. I didn't mind leave there. I was just, and it is that sort of shop that's really welcoming, that you feel that you can just sit there and look through books, to help you make your choice. Yeah, so that's Minerva. And I think it's, like I said, I think it's really important that we support these bookshops. It's a bit like your local yarn stores, because if we don't support them, we lose them, and then we just get stuck with all the big, the big corporate stores that have no personality. Yeah, I am now going to show you what I purchased, some of my wool purchases, and then I'm going to show you I've got new stuff here in my shop and on my online shop. I want to share that with you. And I'm going to have a sip of coffee. I bought this coffee cup. It says fueled by knitting and coffee. I've got glare. I'm starting to get a bit of sun through the windows. It was quite early this morning when I started podcasting, so the light's kind of changing because the sun's come up. We had a beautiful sunrise, by the way. Yeah, I bought this at the Yarn Festival, and it's a beautiful wee cup. It keeps my coffee hot for hours, but it doesn't fit in my cup holder in my car. That was a bit silly. But I'm going to have a bit of coffee, and I'm going to grab all the yarn I want to show you. Okay. I said earlier when I was in Masterton, we went to the Wool Shed, which is a museum in Masterton, and it showcases the history of the production of wool in New Zealand over the last 100 years. But in there is also the Spinners and Weavers Guild, and we went in there and there was a couple of ladies spinning, and there was a lady spinning on an Ashford's e-spinner, which is what I've got. I still haven't used it. So I sat with her for a little while and watched her, and she talked me through what she was doing. So I was super thrilled. That was a highlight. But this museum is, if you're a knitter and you love yarn, it's worth stopping into if you're going through Masterton. But they also have a shop there where they sell, yarny stuff. And they had this for sale, and I couldn't help it. I had to bring a bit of the wire wrapper home with me. This jersey, have a look at this. It's big. It's like an oversized granddad's jersey or something. It's just beautiful. So this has been hand spun and hand knitted by one of the ladies there at the Guild. And my understanding is that I think it was a custom order for somebody that never went through with the purchase. And I won't tell you what I paid for it, but I paid way, way less. I think they sell these in the markets for hundreds of dollars. And I paid a fraction of that. And I think it was because it was custom order that no one wanted, and I had to have it. And do you know what? I haven't worn it. My daughter took it. I showed it to her, and she's worn it nearly every day. And I had to say to her, "Can I have my jersey back? I want to put it on my podcast." It's soft, but it's rustic, and it's just, that jersey that you want to throw on when you're outdoors, and you just know it's going to keep you warm. And I just love it. It has been knitted in the flat and seamed. I love a raglan, and that's got a raglan sleeve. But that was one of my purchases, and I actually feel really privileged to have it. I have got the lady that actually spun and knitted that. Her name was Jean Wells. So you get a little card that tells you who knitted it and who spun it and about the yarn. And I just thought that was really special. It was just a highlight. I love it. So that was the first thing. No, that was the last thing I bought, because before that I was at the show. Now this yarn, this lady was trading at the Christchurch Wool Festival, but I was too busy and I didn't get to go and see anyone or buy anything. But I've had my eye on this for a little while. I'm not sure how I feel about knitting, but it's 50% silk and 50% merino. And I'm not sure how, it's beautifully soft, but I think I'm going to have to use bamboo knitting needles and not my stainless steel. I think the silk's going to make it really quite slippery, but I also know that it's just going to be, look at the sheen on it. Loved the colour, and everything I purchased with a purpose. I looked at that yarn and thought, yep, that is going to be my next Cumulus tee. So that's what I bought this yarn for. So the Cumulus tee is a t-shirt by Petite Knit. It's it there. and it's netted back and forth while you do, a bit like that other jersey. It's netted back and forth. You do the back, and then you do the V-neck, and then you join it in the rounds and knit down. That's my first Cumulus tee that I knitted. And I've done that quite boxy and oversized because I like to wear it in the summer, and I didn't want anything clingy. I wanted something loose and drapey. It's got I-cord around the V-neck. I love the open V-neck. I knitted that, I think this year, and I knitted that in my Exmoor sock yarn. That colour there is called Whortleberries, the dark blue. But that's just a 90% wool, 10% nylon. This is such a versatile sock yarn. But that is what I did my first Cumulus tee in. And when I saw this, I thought it would make it beautiful. Once again, light, drapey, cool Cumulus tee. And I really liked the colour. I think the colour works. So that, it wasn't a cheap yarn. It's actually quite a pricey yarn. I bought 3 skeins. So I've got 4, 8, 1200 metres, which I know will be more than enough. To be honest, I could probably get one out of 800. But I do like it loose and, you know, sort of very airy. So that was my first purchase. The colourway is called Blush. Yeah, and it's, yeah, 50% silk, 50% merino, 100 grams, 400 metres. So it's that, sits right in that finger and weight yarn range. I haven't wound it or anything. I did toss up between winding this and casting this on, or the daily pullover, and I chose the daily pullover. But I think I will cast this on in the next couple of months for this summer. That was my first purchase. This purchase, I wanted to get a couple of things that I knew weren't here in Christchurch. I wanted to support some of the smaller dyers that just work in their local region. Yeah, so that's what I did. I hadn't heard of these people, but it's Knot and Tie, K-N-O-T, Knot and Tie. Oh, there's that glare. Knot and Tie. Her name's Ashley, and she's an indie dyer. And I bought this once again to do a t-shirt. And the fibre is different to me, and that's what appealed to me. So this is 50% baby alpaca, 25% linen, 25% silk. So once again, super, super soft. It will be really drapey, and I just thought it was a really pretty colourway. Sit there. It's 100 gram, 400 metres, so it's finger in weight. Indie dyer. And the pattern that I think I'm going to do, and I only bought 2 of these, so I've only got 800 metres, so I have to be a bit careful. But I have shown this pattern before. It has been in my queue of things that I want to do, and it's called the Cullum. And it's a t-shirt by Isabell Kraemer. It's been done in Quince & Co. So it has been done in a yarn with linen. So this yarn would be beautiful for it. But that's it there. So it's got that beautiful bit of lace work across the top, and then just stockinette stitch all the way down. So I really like the simplicity of it, and I think that yarn will be perfect for it. And there's a theme going on here, isn't there? I'm doing summer knitting. So they're 2 t-shirts, 2 short sleeve things that I want to knit, and both of those I purchased while I was there. This is my last purchase. So I made 3 yarn purchases plus my hand spun jersey. That was impulse. So I didn't plan on going there to buy a jersey, but it just was calling my name. I had to have it. Now this yarn, I've heard of this dyer, this indie dyer, and I was really actually happy to see her, and I knew that I wanted some of her yarn. And she's called the Kindly Dyer, and she uses all natural botanicals to create her colours. So she doesn't use any chemical dyes. So all of her colours, let's see if that shows up. You can see they're really quite earthy. And that's because she gathers herbs and flowers and barks and all beautiful things from around her. I'm sure avocado pips, that would be a big one. I'm going to leave the link, and you can go and have a look at her website, and it's called the Kindly Dyer. And I don't know why I chose this colour, but it just was calling out to me. Cochineal over dyed. She writes on it, and I can't read it though, something or other leaves. So she writes what she's used to create this colour. But the yarn is 100% South Island Merino, so it's from where I live. So that was special, and it was dyed here in New Zealand using New Zealand botanicals. But this is the first colour, and it's probably showing it up a bit brighter than it actually is. But it's really subtle and earthy, and I just loved it. Now, I bought 3 of these for the main colour, and this is the colour I bought for the colour work contrast. Isn't that beautiful? So I am going, my initial plan was a Jen Steingass. I love Jen Steingass's. I've done her gold wing. I've done 2 of hers, 3. And all 3 of them I've gifted. So I haven't got one in my own wardrobe. So it's DK weight. No, it's not. It's 4-ply. So 100 grams, 380 meters. It feels quite plump. It feels like quite a plump 4-ply. Definitely compared to those ones with silk in it. So that's my main colour, and that's going to be my colour work. And I'm going to do a Jen Steingass pattern. She's got lots of colour work patterns. Jump onto Rav. They're really nice patterns. Jump onto Rav and look up Jen Steingass if you haven't yet, and you will just see that there's just so many. So that was my last purchase. And I felt really, really happy and spoilt. I got home and my husband says, I don't get it, Lisa. You have a yarn shop. You have all this wool and you have to go and buy yarn. Of course I do. I need to buy from other dyers. There's so much out there. We are just so spoilt with choice. I'm going to have another sip of my coffee. Pop that away. So that was the Kindly Dyer, which is natural botanicals. Okay, so what I've got some patterns that I want to show you, but I've also got some new yarn that is in my store and I wanted to show you that, so I thought I'd pair the pattern with yarn that would be suitable. Now a friend of mine told me about this pattern. And she said, it's super popular. Everyone's talking about it. Everyone's knitting it. I'm going, well, why haven't I heard about it? So obviously I'm just on different social media sites. Now this is called the Magnolia Chunky Cardigan. And it's gorgeous. It is absolutely gorgeous. It almost has a retro-y feel to it. But I think that's just because of the crop and the sort of wide neck. 3/4 or bracelet length sleeves. Now this is done in a I get a bit confused, chunky worsted, I think 10 to 12 ply. I did look up the gauge, a 16 stitch gauge, so that would probably be on about 5 mil needle. I think it's a 6 mil needle and you use 5 mil for the ribbing. That's just my guess. But I have added to my collection of yarn here in my shop. I bring in some yarn from South Africa, and it's called Nurturing Fibres, and it's 100% high twist merino, and it's super, super soft, like soft to skin soft, no scratch factor. And so this is 100 grams is 206 meters. So we're talking sort of 10 ply. I'm going to see if you can see the high twist in that. Anyway, she calls it Super Twist DK. But this would work for this cardigan. I think I have about 8 colours, but I've only grabbed 4 of them. So that's straw, quince, cedar, and vintage rose. There's also a blue, a grey, a silver. Yeah. So I think I'm really excited about this cardigan. If I'm to cast on another cardigan or a new cardigan, that's what it's going to be. And it's going to be in this super twist. So if any of this appeals to you and you're wanting to do this cardigan, on my website it's under Nurturing Fibres, and it's the Super Twist DK. So that's the first pattern. Now, this is in the same yarn. This pattern I've had in my folder for a couple of years, probably since it got launched. And I've always wanted to do it, but I've never really had or found the yarn to do it in. Once again, the gauge is 17 stitch. So we're talking chunky, 5 or 6 mil size needles. But it's Hohi Locatelli, and it's called the Super Simple Summer Sweater. Lots of S's. Now that's it there. So it's yoke construction, top down. You could do this jersey in one colour. If stripes aren't your thing, I have seen other podcasters do this pattern in one colour, and I think it would be the perfect pattern for your first top down in the round sweater, because it's literally super simple. There we go. That's all I got to say on that. Love the wide neck because I don't like things up here. Love everything about this pattern. And when I got this yarn and it arrived, instantly it was super simple summer sweater. And these are 2 of the other colours in this range. This one's called Smoky Nights, and it's like a mauve. And this one's called Luna. And that yarn and the other colours that I showed you would work perfect for this. And if you haven't done your first top down in the round sweater yet, and you want something, this would be a quick knit. This would knit up really quickly at that gauge. That's the one I recommend. Hohi Locatelli does some beautiful patterns. She does some beautiful shawls, cardigans. Actually, I've got one of her cardigans on the needles, and I haven't given you an update because I haven't done anything on it. Because it's quite a, I can't remember the name of it. It's escaped me. It requires a lot of concentration, and I really haven't had that. I do a lot of knitting every day, but I've got to be in the right headspace for that kind of concentration. Same yarn, but different colour. I'm working through all the colours here. This colour is called Aged Leather. I have also had this in the 4 ply, but this is in that the Super Twist DK. Love it. It's quite earthy. And this is the pattern that jumped out at me. And I'm just looking here for the gauge. 18 stitch. So same. Like, and it's called Ila. But it's another Isabell Kraemer. And it's a cardigan. And I'm not sure which one I love more, whether I love this one or whether I love the Magnolia. Probably the Magnolia would be my first choice. but this is another cardigan, and it would be ideal in this DK yarn. I think the reason why I lean towards cardigans for DK is because generally a DK for me is too hot when I'm indoors. So it's better to have it like as a cardigan or outerwear that it keeps you warm when you're outside, but as soon as you get inside, you can take it off. I find a lot of jerseys in DK just too warm for me. In saying that super simple summer sweater, say that 5 times really fast, I think it's quite boxy, and I don't think it would be as hot as some garments. I don't know. Maybe it would be hot, but maybe it's just the name that makes me think that it wouldn't be too hot. But they are 3 patterns that I really like that are really suited to that yarn. In saying that, I showed you this last time, and this is definitely, I'll probably cast this on before I would cast on the Magnolia, and that's the Andrea Mowry Douglas. I won't go on about it too much because I showed it to you last time. Is it going to show up without the glare? Now, I've got kits together in my Appledore DK, and this is another kit that I've sold quite a lot of that you guys are loving. Once again, this yarn is $35, but as a kit, if you buy it all, I've reduced the price down to $30, but you have to buy it as a kit. So, yeah, I wasn't going to talk about this, but I thought because I'm talking about cardigans, I probably should mention that. So these kits are still available, and if you're interested, it's on my website. You would have to search the Douglas Cardi or Douglas Cardi for that kit. I really want to wind this on and start it, and I'm not going to get it done before I go away, which means I'm probably not going to get it done before my next podcast. It's not the sort of project that I could travel with because there's too many skeins, which is why I'm not taking my stripes to travel with either, because there'd be just too much there. Now, I think I've covered everything that was on my list. Oh, isn't that good? Oh no, there was one more. There's one more. I wish I could have borrowed it. So I had coffee with a friend last week, one of my knitting friends, and she was wearing the Petite knits, the Cumulus blouse. So I showed you the Cumulus tee, that one there, that I'm going to do again. Well, this is the Cumulus blouse. Now, this calls in the pattern for silk mohair held double. And that's what she did. She held 2 strands double, and it was beautiful. It was light, it was airy, it was drapey, it looked fabulous on her. It was in a really bright pink. But it wasn't see-through or anything, because, I mean, silk mohair on its own would be really fine to knit with, but double stranding it, it made a really beautiful fabric. And I think for me, I often think about double stranding mohair with like a fingering weight yarn, which is like what we do for things like ranunculus or the Love Note. We get a 4-ply and we double strand it with a mohair. So to hold 2 mohairs together was quite new, and I want to do it, and I know that a couple of my other friends in the knit group are going to do it after seeing her wear, my friend wear hers. So that is a segue again into me showing you this. So I love silk mohair, and I've talked about it before. I love double stranding it. I love my Love Note. I love my I've done a couple of jerseys where I've double stranded it. But what I wanted to do for my shop, I kind of thought, why isn't there much 400 metre skeins of mohair? When you go to the shop to buy it, it's always in a small ball of like 100 or 200 metres. So I have sourced kid silk mohair. It's 70% kid mohair and 30% silk. This is seriously a luxurious mohair, and I have sourced this product, and it's come in under my own brand, Unwind and Knit with Me. But the 50 grams is 400 meters, and that's what I wanted. I wanted 400 meter skeins, because normally when you pair it with a fingering weight, it's with a 400 meter skein of fingering weight. In saying that, this pattern is just for this double-stranded. So I just want to show you the colours quickly. So if you're tempted to do any mohair projects, whether it be a love note or something you double strand with 4-ply, or this Cumulus blouse where you double strand, it's serious luxurious. It's not a cheap knit. Kid silk mohair isn't cheap, but it is luxury. Anyway, I'll show you the colours. So this one is called Straw. The same colour is in my the DK weight that I just showed you. But anyway, that's Straw. This one is Smoky Nights, which is just stunning. I love this. This one's called Conch Shell. Isn't that beautiful? I think if I do that Cumulus blouse, this is the colour that I will use. Conch Shell. I got vanilla, just plain old vanilla. This one was really popular when I had it in the small balls, but it's called Cherry Blossom. I also have this Cherry Blossom in the fingering weight high twist, but that's the Cherry Blossom. This one I've had before in the small skeins, called Monet. One of my other friends is doing this in this colour, and it will look stunning on her. I just think it'll really bring the blue out in her eyes. It's such a beautiful colour. Luna. So some of these colours I've repeated that are in my DK, but that's Luna. And of course Silver. I always sell out of Silver. So that's my new range of kid silk mohair. It's just beautiful. If you haven't used kid silk mohair, you must. Put it on your list. But that is a pattern recommendation, the Petite Knits Cumulus blouse. So that was that. And I think I'm almost done. I did just pull this out. I'm just going to show you this. So under my own label, I have my Super Twist Merino, which is fingering weight yarn, 4-ply. And I've probably got, I don't know, 10 or 12 colours. And I showed you some before, but this one's called Californian Surf. And I just love this. And I thought double-stranded with vanilla would be gorgeous. It would be really subtle, light blue, just a real beautiful summery top, that one. And this one here is called Philadelphia Nights. And was it that one? I thought paired with Smoky Nights, those two would be just beautiful. There are so many options for double-stranded mohair. Anyway, you should come have a look one day if you're in Christchurch. In saying that, my shop in person is going to be closed for the next 3 weeks because I'm not going to be here. But my daughter is more than capable of looking after my online store. I won't be doing any social media while I'm away. Both my husband and I feel that we need to disconnect for a couple of weeks and just completely chill. So my email will have an out of office note on it. So still feel free to email me if you need to, but just know that I won't be getting back to you for a couple of weeks. I won't be here. Really excited. So what I have to do now is decide what I'm going to take away with me for travel knitting, like airports and planes, but also while I'm away. I think it's my plan is definitely this one here, the Daily Pullover. And the reason for that, I think linen merino, it's not going to be too hot and sweaty in my hands. It's quite a nice yarn to knit with in hot weather. And also because it's only one colour, so I only need to take 1 or 2 skeins away with me. So I think that's what I'm going to take. I may cast on a pair of socks and take with me. And I also pulled this out. I've shown you this before. And I've knitted one for my daughter. But it's called the Ripple Bralette by Jessie May. And it's just I'm not even going to pull it out. I know I've shown it to you so many times. It's literally just a 3x3 rib in the rounds. And you just keep knitting until your body's long enough, and then when you get to this bit you do a bit of shaping to make it into a singlet, and that's really mindless small portable knitting that's in my little Harris tweed bag. So I did pull this out. I haven't knitted on this since I travelled when I went to Europe last year. I probably will throw that in my backpack. So that, maybe a pair of socks, and maybe my daily pullover. And I'm pretty well finished. I am quite excited to say to you that I have now got the Cullum wool wash on my website, and also the blockers. The blocking pins are on my website. And there's lots of new stuff on my website, actually. Lots of new yarn. Just lots and lots. I still have quite a few of these leather notion pouches left in green, orange, and what's that colour? Coral. I think it's called coral. These actually, like seriously, this is my notions pouch. This holds a real lot. Quite deceiving. They're quite small, but they really do hold a lot. I still have those available. My leather project bags and bucket bags. But these are the new leather tote. I haven't shown you these. I didn't have these on my last podcast. So these are a small tote. They're not lined like all the other ones, and it's what I love about them. The leather is so thick, and so it just smells so good. It's nice. It's just beautiful leather. And all these bags actually come with their own matching. So you get the bag and the matching notions pouch. These are all handmade, 100% pure leather. And I've said it before, these bags get better with age. They're that kind of leather that's just forever. Like, you'll just love them. But that comes in the mustard. Look at that. And the orange. And I've only got one pink one left. There's a hot pink, and I've only got one left. So they are available, and there won't be any more bags probably for another month or so, maybe even 6 weeks. So what's on my website, get in quick or you'll miss out. That's all I've got. What's on the website for quite some time. I finished, and I've said a lot. I am so sorry. I don't mean to. I think I got up too early this morning as well. I actually got up at 5:30 this morning. And it was actually still dark when I was getting ready to podcast. Crazy. But I do have a lot to do over the next few days. So thank you very much for joining me and sharing this time with me. For me, it's like my virtual knit group. You're like my knit group. It's really special. So thank you very much. I just keep checking. I feel like I've missed something. I'm sure I haven't. Online store, unwindandknit.com. Oh, yes. So every order while I'm away, there's going to be, let me just get, every online order, regardless of whether it's needles or wool or anything on my website, I'm going to include a free pattern of that wrap. It's a beautiful one skein shawl. I've shown it to you before. Perfect for those one skeins that you've got in your stash that you don't know what to do with. And if they're special, this is the perfect way to use them, because it's so wearable. You wear it all the time, all year round. So yeah, that's the free gift with any online purchases while I'm away. And also my Chalgoon needle sets will all come with a free 3mm pair of tips. And also by the end of the week, I will have those short 23 and 30 centimetre fixed in the 2.25, 2.5 and 2.75 for those of you that want to do socks in the small circumference. Okay, for real, I'm going to say goodbye now. Thank you very much for joining me. Stay happy, stay safe, and I'm sure when I see you in about 3 or 4 weeks, hopefully I've got a bit of a tan, a bit of a glow, and I'm going to be super, super chilled and relaxed. I'm really looking forward to it. Thank you, everyone. Stay happy, stay safe, and I'll see you in a couple of weeks. No, 3 or 4 weeks. Bye.